tonight, of course, that is the miracle of Wrexham. Of course, we know who owns them. The millions being pumped into them. Salford City-like, just the money being puked into them. And
Salford City is a legitimate fairy tale story. Absolutely nobody complained about their rise up the league either.
Oh God, nobody at all. Even though I actually like the class of 90. What was the class of 96? What the documentary series? 92, excuse me. Yeah, sorry, 92. The class of 92, which is, folks, if you want to watch a really good documentary series about football that actually says something more about a club and about the sport, and actually is more interesting than some glossed over, Vaseline filled, welcome to Wrexham, the class of 92, and the progression of Salford City up through the Northern Premier League and so on, up and then into the Football League. It's brilliant. I mean, there's a lot of swearing in it, but you actually get to know. The former players, like these guys, like from the Nevilles, which with Phil Neville, I found very, very. You can feel a real bond on him. Like he's a good man. Gary Neville, of course, he kind of comes across as a bit of a tosspot, but he's still like he actually is nice as well, and his attitude is like he's a bit excitable. Giggs kind of, I don't know, he just came across as a weird one. Scholes comes across as very engaging, and the recent revelations about his son and the fears for his son. I mean, very, very, you really get to like him. But anyway, but Salford City, look, Class 92, watch that as a documentary. It's way better. But we're speaking right now about this Welsh fairy tale that's really, kind of, it's beyond interesting. So right now, Wrexham, who've risen up the ranks from non-league all the way up to the Championship, second tier, of course, in England, they are now sitting in 15th place and 17 points. And they're not that far away from the relegation, but given the fact that Sheffield Wednesday are going down, they have -5 points. -5. They've won a game. They've drawn 4, but they're -5 points. That's over. They're in administration, so they're in an awful situation. Norwich and Sheffield should come good. Sheffield should actually rebuild themselves. But Wrexham are kind of just ahead of their Welsh rivals, Swansea. But of course, we do know that Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds, they've pumped millions in. Of course, with a lot of strange investors as well. Like this is kind of, I have questions to ask, but I'm not going to do it right now. As a dedicated football fan, how heartened, how warmed has your heart been with this? I mean, Isolde said she wouldn't mind, but that was in relation to Ryan Reynolds. But probably related to something else, and thank God AK.
We're not going to have any other co-host coming back to us. You do realise already that AK is going to say, "Fine, thanks yet again for hanging out, Stry." Isolde, well, yeah.
And AK as well. She's going to do your campaign next week. As a football fan and someone who's grown up with football and grew up with sports, how believable, how heartening is this Wrexham rise to the top, and the fact that they have they've done very well for Wrexham itself as a town, which is a great town, which is a town that was in need of a lot of a boost and has a great university in as well. But how heartened have you been, and how happy will you be when it all blows up?
Well, I mean, it's very easy to take wildly different sides on this. You mentioned, okay, let's start with the positives, the town itself. I don't think at this stage anybody doesn't realise, I don't think anybody genuinely believes that Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney are not genuinely invested in not just the club, but the town. You see them spending a reasonable amount of time, given their careers, over in Wrexham. They meet people around, and they've genuinely, I know it's for the TV show, I know the cameras are there and they have to look like this, but they do put the time and effort in. They clearly do love what they're doing. You ask any Wrexham fan, virtually any Wrexham fan, and they will be over the moon at what's happened. Not just because of the money that's gone in and the promotions back to back going all the way up to second tier, but they know that these two owners are not going to just run away at the first sign of trouble. I mean, now is the real test, because it sounds a little bit dismissive of League One, League Two, the lower reaches of professional football in England. But the jump up from the sixth and fifth tiers to the fourth and third is not impossible if you have just a reasonable amount of investment to stay in the Championship. You've got clubs, the second tier, you've got clubs who have been champions of England. You've got clubs who played in the Champions League before, not just European Cup, but Champions League, and it was the last 3 decades. So it's going to take a hell of a lot more investment to get any further. And I think, whilst I don't believe they will lose interest, I think they will struggle to get the level of investment needed to get a hope in hell of getting promotion up to the Premier League. So I can't say I'm hardened by it, because yes, it's easy to sneer. Now, the negative side is obvious. The investment there. Well, if anybody had a lot of investment, they would go flying up the league table. Well, yes, they would, but the club has been invested in. The town has been invested in. I remember going to watch Wrexham at the racecourse against, I think they were playing QPR. It must have been in 1999, 2000, when Carl Connolly was the star player. Brian Carey was still a player, not a manager. It was a good lower league fixture, bit of grit, bit of strength, bit of booting it up the pitch, and lots of hilarious miss kicks. The quality was not there. It was 0-0. It was rubbish. All those fans who were watching at that time, give them the choice, of course, they would choose the investment. Clubs can say they're jealous. Clubs can say it's ruining football if they like, but it is what it is. Investment is there. Clubs are there to be invested in. Would you rather that Wrexham, like a lot of clubs have been threatened with, go out of existence without investment? Because let's not forget, they were non-league. They were playing in the fifth tier not all that long ago. Well, clubs could go out of existence. The racecourse ground is one of the oldest grounds in continued use in world football. That in itself is a piece of history. And if you say we can't be having multimillionaires coming in and shooting them up artificially up the table, well, I would argue that is better than seeing a professional club go out of existence. So for that alone, hardened against it? No. Heartened by it? Not either. But I think people have to understand, in the end, having a football club surviving is better than one going out of existence, as long as it's not at the expense of other clubs, which, well, I mean, how on earth do you measure that? My local town club in England, Altrincham, they were a famous non-league club. They were famous for giant killing feats in the FA Cup in the 1970s, and they've been denied promotion to professional football in an era when you had to be voted to become a professional club. So forget investment. Well, Altrincham have only been professional for the last 3 years. Would I love a Hollywood story like that coming in? You bet I would. You bet I would. Not because I think they deserve it more than others, but simply because it would secure the history of the club. So,
well, I think maybe if could happen sooner, maybe Nicolas Maduro might need a place to rest some of the millions he'll take when he kind of escapes the US invasion of Venezuela. So, like, Altrincham could do that. I mean,